This is Gary Hudson at Folkstone Guitars. Today is Wednesday, April 16th, 2025. Today I'm going to demonstrate a full setup and full detail, what all that entails on a guitar. And here's one that's come in, and I get these typically every week where a guitar has been neglected for many years. And you can see on this washburn that the frets are pretty corroded. Also, there's dirt deposits in the fingerboard, so I want to get all those out as well. The pickups had gold covers. They're pretty much ate away. The gold covers can be replaced, but we're not going to be doing that. We're just going to clean them up as best as we can. Gold hardware has a tendency to really rust up on guitars. And first of all, let's plug it in and see what its current condition is. Alright, I got some tone. I was told that the neck pickup is not always on. Let's see if it's in the knob. There it is. So those electronics all need to be blown out as part of this process. It's probably a good pot. It just needs to be blown out. We'll check that. If it needs to be replaced, we'll have to replace it, but I don't think we'll have to. We can usually just blow them out. But the next thing I'm going to have to make sure of is that this guitar has a working truss rod. Now I do all this as part of an inspection when the guitar comes in, and I do give free inspections if nothing else is done but an inspection. There's no cost for it, but part of that inspection process is definitely checking the truss rod and making sure that it works properly. I'm going to do that next. So now I have the strings off, and we're going to check this truss rod. The truss rod is the most important thing about a setup. I call it the foundation of the setup, because if you can't get a truss rod right, you can't get the rest of the setup right. And when you set up a guitar, the first thing you do is get the truss rod right so that you build the setup around a properly adjusted truss rod. All right, there's the cover. Put it over there with the other parts I've removed from the guitar so far, like the bridge and the tailpiece here. And looking at that, my guess is it's been quite a long time since this truss rod's been adjusted, if it was ever done at all, because the strings themselves and the frets and everything are so corroded that this guitar has not been serviced, I would guess, for quite some time. And so I'm going to look at first of all, the straight edge over the frets here. It's a 24 3/4 scale guitar, and I have no back bow with the strings off. It looks like the neck is pretty straight with the strings off, but it should be slightly back bowed so that the strings will pull the neck straight in the setup. So the first thing I'm going to do is take some of this deoxit here, and I'm going to lube that truss rod. Now most truss rod nuts, it's just an Allen nut that fits onto the shaft, threads onto the shaft of the truss rod. And I put some of that in there to just break up any corrosion that might be around that nut. And the first thing I do is I loosen it. So what size is this? Well, it's either going to be a 4 or it's going to be a 5mm, depending on how old it is. Recent guitars, most guitars built over the last 20 years or so in Asia are 4mm, and the older ones are 5, especially if they were Japanese or Korean. This one is a 5. All right, so this is an older one. So I'm loosening it in here, and I'll loosen it up because it's going to help expose the threads. So before you go tightening an old truss rod that's been sitting around and corroded for years, you want to first of all get it working, get those threads working. So I go back in there with a little more, just a shot like that. So now this truss rod should turn, tighten up, and adjust this neck. Let's see if it will. Seems to turn pretty easily. All right. Because if these things are frozen up and corroded, you can break these truss rods, these old truss rods like this. Just loosening them can break them. So first thing you want to do is spray it, then loosen it. And my straight edge is beginning to rock a little bit. Not as much as I need it to. I've got a back bow going in my neck. Now I've got a good working truss rod. I've got a back bow going. Get it a little bit tighter, just a tad, just a tad. All right, put that in there. Just a little bit, just like that. And that should do it. Now I've got the bridge and the stop bar off, and they're gold hardware, so they're going to need to be cleaned up. And all this has got to be detailed. I got to get the pick guard off the guitar and just detail all this up, clean the guitar up. And what we want to do now is spray out this front pot here for the neck pickup. Remove the knob, like that. Then I take one of these, I don't know what you call it, but this is what I'm using it for here. What I'm going to show you is actually what it's made for. This is something that allows you to inject the pot with some cleaner from the top, because it's rather difficult to get to inside this F-hole. So we're going to see if we can clean it this way. Always get a tissue ready. And there's a little place to insert the nozzle right here. You put it over the shaft like that, just like that. There we go. And give it one little spray. And then run it back and forth quite a bit, get it working in there. And I would suggest doing this twice here. Make sure it gets in there. It will run down inside that shaft and it will clean that wiper. So let's turn this back on and see what we got now. On the front pickup, it's working. And how well is it working? Sounds like it's working fine. So we're going to repeat that process on all four pots, and then I'm going to clean this up. So the next thing we want to do is clean up this top here, and I want to remove the bushings, or the studs rather. Remove the studs for the bridge. These are going to be lubed as well. This is going to be, I'm going to put deoxit in there, get rid of any corrosion that's in these threads, because you want these to turn easily for purposes of setting up the guitar. Then I've got some of this Dunlop 65 around here. There we go. This is cheap cleaning stuff. You can use it on virtually all finishes on a guitar. And the first thing I want to do is just put a little bit down like this and get the bulk of that dirt out of there. Dirt, dust, corrosion, everything that's just all over the top of this guitar here. And I'm going to clean this up right now. Just like this. It's not like we're buffing it out to gloss perfection as it was when it was brand new. You'd have to have a buff wheel to do that. You'd have to remove all the hardware to do that. So there's no point in that, because that could get pretty expensive. So, you know, you don't want to turn this into like a complete restoration project, because that's not what's going on here. What we're doing is we're going to get this guitar playing again. It's going to play good. It's going to sound good, and it's going to be cleaned up. Okay, detailed. This is what we call a full detail here at Folkstone. And to get in some of these little cracks and crevices here a little better, I just grab me some Q-tips like this, and I'll put a little bit of cleaner on them and go in some of these hard to get places, like in here, around here. Some of these places are, you just can't get in there with a paper towel very well. And you know, this is about the best we can do with something like this without actually replacing the pickup covers and the bridge and so forth. Of course, if this is something you wanted to perform with, you wanted to get it 100%, you can always put in a Switchcraft switch. Instead of gold covers on the pickups, just new pickups. You know, just replace the pickups. But these pickups appear to be just fine. And so when I get all the dirt cleaned off the top's where I start with the strings off, of course. Then what I'll do is I'll take some of this Novus 2 polish, this Novus 2, and this is a scratch remover, number 2 scratch remover. That's the purpose of it. But it's also a nice polish to get, this is just to get rid of some grimy stuff that just won't come out. You know, it makes it look a little better. So it's a nice polish. It's harmless. You can use it on nitro surfaces, old surfaces, any kind of guitar tops you want. It doesn't hurt anything. And once I get this on here, all scrubbed in, then I'm just going to wipe it off, just like if you were waxing a car. It's kind of like car wax. The way it goes on, comes off. You just clean it all off, and the guitar starts to shine up again like you want it to. And next I'm going to shine up that pick guard before I forget to. I want to get that taken care of, because it's going back on the guitar and it's got to look right. Okay. Pretty much covers all the top detail, all the top cleaning. The pots are blown out. Oh, one more thing I want to do before I forget is lube up these areas here. If there's any corrosion in there, this will dissolve it. And now with these studs for the stop bar, they can go back in. And what I generally like to do is take and put a little lubricant on these. I'll show you what I mean by that. I have this stuff that's works like a nut lube. You would put this synthetic lubricant in the nut, and here I'm going to use it on the top. Excuse me, on the studs. And so I just taken just a few drops of this stuff and put it right around there where those are going to be turned against your string tension, because you got to adjust the action. You can guess at where the action's going to go with the strings off, but to get it right, you've got to adjust it with the strings on and loosened. So that takes care of that. These are working pretty well now. Okay. And it's the same with the pick guard. Clean it first. Underneath as well, where there's been a lot of dust collecting. Then I want to grab the Novus 2 again. Novus 2. Put me a little bit on here on this paper towel, and then polish it up, get it shining again. This stuff will remove pick scratches too. Not all of them, but a lot of them, or make them look better. Not as bad. So it polishes that up. Now, the next thing I need to do here is the headstock. Now, headstock's difficult because it's got hardware in the way. Now, sometimes I might wipe down a headstock with the hardware in the way, and I can still work around the tuners, but I prefer to take them off. So I'm going to remove these tuners, and then we're going to detail the headstock. And I see that these they appear to be Spurzel locking tuners. They take a 12 millimeter, and we're going to remove these. If you turn the headstock over at the back, how things are looking here. Yes, it says right on them, Spurzels. Spurzel locking tuners. So we're going to remove these, and these are, somebody has installed these. The original tuners had a set screw. These don't. They have lugs that go in. So these set screws will stay in and will remove the tuners. Yeah, those old set screws back there were used for the original tuners. These are the replacement tuners someone put on, and for locking tuners. That one just fell right out, and I said they were lug in. That's the set lug on these. That's how these work. And there's not much you can do with gold hardware as far as when it gets rusty. As you can wipe it off, but rusty gold hardware is, if it's really bad, it generally just has to be replaced. These aren't too bad. They're aftermarket tuners. Probably the original tuners just got so rusted that they had to be replaced, or maybe you just wanted locking tuners on there. We don't know, but tuners were replaced on this guitar. So we're going to take these locking tuners off. There's a washer that's stuck on there, and then just push them through like that. That's where they lug in. As you can see, there were screws here. There were set screws. Somebody just left them in there to plug the holes. And there is the hole for That's the hole for the lug in. Goes right there, see. A set lug, you might say. So I'm going to start this headstock detail. And again, using the, oh, we got one here. There it goes. Came out that time. Okay. Clean it. Boy, it makes it a lot easier with those tuners out of the way. Let me tell you. And it's looking great already. Now when you detail a headstock, make sure you get all around the edges of it as well. Like this. Yep. The back of a headstock doesn't get very dirty at all. It's the face of the headstock, and you want to keep the headstock looking good because the headstock is the face of the guitar. It's you always want to have a pretty face on your guitar, and I call the headstock the face. So that's my thing. Let's see here. Get some of this out. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. All right. And when you do it like this, you really get a shine on it. It'll look new again. Be sure to go down the edges as well of the headstock and on the top. All right. There we go. There's that beautiful headstock that was hiding under there. Yep. I say that looks better. Now while I got the bridge off, I want to deoxidize the entire bridge. Just put it in this container here and spray it up real good. Sometimes I'll let these sit overnight. They're so badly corroded. This one isn't so bad. It's not so bad. So we want these threads to turn freely. We want to be able to adjust these saddles for intonation purposes. Make sure everything is adjustable so we can set it up. Now detail the fingerboard. And I take my 65 Dunlop cleaner again and just wet the fingerboard with this. Get it good and wet. And then go this way to get rid of the dirt that's in that fingerboard wood. And get all that out. You don't want to put new strings on your guitar and then have them go down in the dirt on the fingerboard and start corroding too early. So what you want to do is get all that dirt out of there. Most of it's down here in this part of the guitar where most players play, down in the lower register, but there is a little bit up in the upper register. And then after that, you want to just take and polish this way. Polish, polish, polish. That polishes the frets. Then wipe off the cleaner. And you can see there's a lot of dirt and corrosion coming off this fingerboard. I got the front pickup taped up because I don't want to get any fibers from the steel wool stuck to that pickup, because the little fibers will get stuck to that because it's magnetic. And I use quadruple aught steel wool for this. All right. And the next thing is fingerboard oil. And for fingerboard oil, I use the Gurlitt's Guitar Honey. All right. You don't ever want to overuse fingerboard oil, because if you have too much concentrated in a fingerboard, it'll defeat its purpose. And because rosewood is naturally oily, you rarely have to oil a fingerboard. On a new guitar, you usually don't have to do it at all. But this is so that there's really a big bump and a fret down there. I'm going to see if I can straighten that out. There's a burr on that last fret, and I'm going to take care of that. So the fingerboard oil just makes it look great. I think that's the greatest thing about it. It's not that the wood needs to be oiled necessarily. It just enhances it, makes it pop, brings it out. Looks so much better. And so that little burr right there, grab my offset file for that. And let's see what we got going on here. We got a burr here. Let's see if I can focus in on that a little bit. There it is. You see that burr right there? And what we want to do here is get rid of that burr right there on that last fret, because that's something where usually what happens, the guitar fell or was banged with the string, with the strings on it, and that string made that dent in the fret wire. Usually what does it. It's now the crown of that fret is smooth, and there might be a little bit of something there left on the side, but that's not going to affect the way the guitar plays. So what we want to do now is kind of polish that up a little bit more. There we go. And that'll be fine. Just like that. There's no string contact here with the crown that's affected by that now. It's all smoothed out. And with the guitar flipped over now, you can see the neck to detail that. Get some number 65. Start up here on the headstock and go down the neck. Make sure the neck is clean. Clean the neck of the guitar. The neck of the guitar is in good shape. The neck shaft, as far as the finish, I don't see any major problems or dings in the neck shaft. Back here on the back of the guitar, we want to get that cleaned up as well. And this is going to take some novice polish back here too. So I'll be repeating the process back here with the novice polish, as well as the siding on the guitar. We want to clean that up too. And just as a quick note on this, when a guitar's been left in a case for that long, you often have corrosive deposits in the fabric. And when you put new strings on the guitar, or new hardware, or both, the fabric with all this contamination is going to go right back on the guitar. So your strings aren't going to last as long, your hardware's not going to last as long. And I always tell the customer, in this situation, it's best for you to do the cleaning on this. You take this home, and I'd recommend some 409 with a damp cloth, and just wipe all this out as best you can somewhere with the case open, and let it air dry. And even after you do that, you should probably put a cloth over the guitar and enclose it on that in this case, because you can get most of this out, but maybe not all of it. So I would protect it from now on with a cloth over the guitar when it's enclosed in the case. So the next thing I want to do is give these frets a tap. Often Asian guitars have uneven frets, and you just want to give them a light tap in case any of these are poking up. Give Give them a light tap. And you want to use the plastic side of the mallet for this. And when you do this, you'll often find some rough edges of the fret wire kind of poking out, because especially if the fret went down, you'll find that the edges of these crowns will be a little bit rough after that, because the fret goes down and then the edge of the crown goes out over the edge of the fingerboard and it makes it stick out a little bit. So in this case, we have a couple of burrs here, not much, not too bad really, and we just want to kind of dress those off and get them smooth again. You don't want that to snag a string or snag your finger when you're playing the guitar. Then the last thing I'll do before I put the hardware and the strings on the guitar is check the nut. And very often the nut's got to be cleaned out. There's corrosion in it. And I usually just get something like an X-Acto knife or some pieces of sandpaper. Most of the time the X-Acto knife does a pretty good job of cleaning it out. Plus, if pencil lead's been used in this for these slots to keep them slick, that's fine, but you want to clean them out on a regular basis. I don't know if there's pencil lead in here or not. I think it is. Not really sure, but some of it's dirt, some of it's corrosion, and we want to get that nut cleaned out real good, because new strings are going in there. We don't want them to start corroding off those nut slots. So get those cleaned up, get them cleaned out real good. And I usually take a little bit of sandpaper, something like 600 or 800 or 1000, and just go through them like that, each one. Get all that grime out of there like that, and we'll see if these need to be changed at all in the setup, if they need to be any lower. I'm going to take it for granted right now that the nut is where it should be, and I won't need to do anything else to it, but we'll find out for sure in the setup. Little truss rod cover here, we want to shine that up too. It's had quite a bit of gunk on it, so get that good and polished up as well. Yeah. Looks better. This is a Washburn HB 35S. The next thing I want to do is install the bridge, because I'm getting ready to string the guitar up now. I've got the truss rod pre-adjusted, and I've got my lubricant on these studs here. And one of the things you want to check on, and this will work on any guitar that's 22 fret and 24 3/4 scale, okay, is the distance from the middle of the 22nd fret to the contact point on the G. And that should be at least 7 3/16 or 7 1/8. This one is right at 7 1/8, and that's a better set than a Gibson, because a lot of Les Pauls come short and they only measure out to 7, even with the G-string saddle all the way against the back of the bridge frame. So this one's got a wide track and it intonated right there. So these other, if I know that that is okay and the saddle's turned at a good compensated angle and the way it's mounted on there, Therefore, this intonation should not be very far off at all with this saddle setting. So the next thing is I want to pre-stretch these strings a little bit. So bring this one up, bottom string up to just past the E, just past the A, kind of a D sharp there. Almost an F on that high E, and then just take them and stretch them like this. Down here and up here, down here and in the middle, here and in the middle. And what you're doing is you're pulling this string tie at the ball of the string tight, and you are pre-stretching the string itself. And now tune it up in the player's position. Tune the guitar up. Tune it right up to standard, or if you are having this guitar set up for a half a step down, then we would tune it up. We would tune it a half step down to check the truss rod. But in this case, we're tuning it standard, which is most common. And these are GHS boomers. This is my standard string and a set of 10s. All right, each string is tuned up. Now, this is where you check the truss rod. Now I'm going to take a look and see how this is doing. Okay, well it's not rocking like this, so it's not backbowed any longer. It did straighten the neck out, and I'm going to look at the relief. And it's got that, like maybe a business card gap here between the metal of the straight edge and the wood of the fingerboard. So what I'm going to do here is loosen these strings back up again, and I'm going to see if I can give it less relief. Relief is the amount of upbow that you have. You have to have, ideally, you want to have just a slight amount of relief here. And the reason you need that is to accommodate for string flux when you lower the action, because the strings they have a wide flux in the center, so the truss rod has to have relief in it so that the strings don't buzz on the frets when you lower the strings to the frets. All right, so what this needs right now is a little bit more of a truss adjustment. So we're going to turn this, give it about that right there, and that should do it. Tune it back up. And you always check this in the player's position, because when you have it on a hook like this on your bench, it will affect the relief and the tuning. All right, there we go. Now in the player's position, we're going to tune it up. Right on pitch. Now recheck. All right, so the strings are all in tune again, and now let's check the truss rod again, where I have reduced the relief, and now there's that space, that gap here. It's about the size of a real thin guitar pick. There's a little bit of a gap in the center. So that is a slight up bow. Before it must have been up bowed quite a bit because it took quite a few turns to get it straightened out. But that is a good relief setting, and we're going to see how well that does with action. So the next thing I want to check is the action. And I do that with my StewMac string action gauge. You should be 70 thousandths at the high E at the 12th fret at tuning. You should be about 90 thousandths, give or take 5 or 10, at the bottom string. So you want to try to get it as low as you can without buzz and normal playing. So now I'm going to look at the 12th fret. And I'm right now sitting at 80 thousandths over there at the high E, and I'm about 90 thousandths already at the bottom E. So what I want to do here is, let me move this camera a little closer, zoom in on this here, this process. So what we need to do is lower the bridge, which we can do with the strings tuned up because we're working with string tension going down. Apparently this is the only side that needs to go down. It just needs to slightly go down. I guessed where this should be, and my guess was pretty accurate. Now once you do that, you got to tune it back up again because it's going to drop tuning slightly when you lower it. I like these bridges you can access with a screwdriver from the top. That works out nicely. All right, let's check it now. And we are at 70 thousandths at the high E and 90 thousandths at the low E at the 12th fret. That's right where we want to be. Next thing I want to check is this nut depth. Now I check this by eye because I've been doing this so long. I can tell by the space between the string and the first fret how far down I have to push to get it to fret on that first fret. I can tell pretty much by eye whether that's 30 thousandths or not. And in this case, the G string is too high at the nut. It's higher than the other. These first two are okay, they're about 30, but that G string there is too high. So I want to take my nut file and take that slot down slightly. You don't want to take off too much because then you got to use the nut repair to do the filling. Now let's see how it is. Oh yeah, right with the just right with the other two strings. Now the fourth string needs to be taken down some, so I'm going to get my number 26 beveled nut file and take that one down slightly right there. Now let's take a look at that. That's good, it's right where it ought to be. And now the fifth string. And we're going to take that down with 36 beveled file. It's a little bit high. We weren't too far off. Sometimes these are way, way off. Oh yeah, that bottom string is just about there. So I want to be very careful and not take off too much. Okay, so using number 50 beveled nut file on this 6th string on an electric guitar. just like that. Take it out a little bit. Good. Okay, now the nut is where it should be. Then loosen the strings again. You get them loosened up. What for? Well, you want those strings to slide freely on these grooves as you're playing or tuning the guitar. You want that to be real slick in there. And the way you get it slick is you take 1500 sandpaper. 1500 sandpaper, and you give them a little bit of a polish like that. Just like that. And then I'm going to take my nut sauce here. Nut sauce. Some people call this nut sauce. You can buy this really cheap. You don't have to buy the nut sauce brand. This is called Rosette. You can get this on Amazon real cheap, this stuff, and it lasts, a bottle of it will last you a long time. Now what we want to do is lubricate the strings at the nut so that you have much less friction. Less friction at that nut, as little as possible. I want those strings to just slide real easy. Now I've got the truss rod adjusted, so when the strings are out of the way like that, we'll go ahead and put the cover back on, and then we'll put the strings back on it and we'll check the intonation. Now we do the intonation. And the intonation is the ability of the guitar to play on key up the fingerboard. And these saddles have to be set at certain intonated points for it to do so. So we got the truss rod right. We've got the right amount of relief. We've got the action preset to where it should be, 70 to 90 thousandths at the 12th fret at tuning. And now we're going to see with the 12th fret here, this is where we test intonation mainly, since this is basically the middle of the guitar. We want to test the octave at the first string, so you get it right up to pitch, and then I prefer to use a chord digital tuner or the Peterson strobe tuner. This one works very efficiently though for this. Now it's on key here. I've tuned the string up to E, and as you can see, it goes sharp at the 12th fret. Alright, so what you want to do if it's playing sharp is move that saddle back. And in this case, we have flathead screws back there. So we want to come back here, lift the string out of the way, and move this saddle back, which is why it was so important to get the crud off this bridge so that you can adjust these screws. All right, it's playing sharp, so I moved it back. Where does it play now? Right on key. Now I'm going to do the others the same way. Make sure they're all playing on key at the 12th fret at tuning. So I've now set all of the other saddles for intonation. Every one of these had to be moved back, but I had enough track to do that here. And they all had to go back about 1/10 of an inch, roughly. But the guitar now plays on key up the fingerboard. And one of the things you want to check with this is also the lower action. I usually check this with a snark tuner attached to the headstock. I'll check like around the G, how the bottom 6th string does on the G and the A. I'll check the 3rd string, 2nd fret, how that A is doing, because a lot of people make open A chords there. That needs to stay intonated consistently with the 12th fret. And I might have to do some tweaking to get it exactly right to strike a balance between intonation in the lower register and intonation here at the octave. But suffice it to say, this one is intonated and done. So we're going to check this string action again, and we're going to try to get away with lowering it a little bit more. Just a little bit. Get it down as much as possible. Because most people like good low action, right? I'm sure you do. I mean, it's hard enough to play a guitar. Why make it harder? Get the action down. Make it easy to play. Somebody might play it more. Make more music that way. Be a better player that way. Practice more. Low action is where the action is, buddy. Alright. Some people prefer higher action, which is fine. To each his own. They might hit the string a little harder and creating more string flux with a higher propensity to buzz, and that's all right, but you just got to get the action up for clearance when you do that. All right, now let's see where it's at here. And looking at my string action gauge again, I'm down to about 68 thousandths there, and I'm down to right about 89, 88 in the bottom. And I don't know how hard this person plays. Maybe they have a heavy right hand. Hopefully they don't, but with normal playing, this is good uniform low action. And I check it for buzz on each string all the way up. No buzz. Start over. There we go. All the way up. All the way, it's playing great. Always check these plain strings up here as well. Make sure when you bend them, they don't buzz out. Okay, pretty much buzz free, great low action. All right, tune it back up. Strings are still stretching out here. All right, so lastly, I want to check the pickup height, and this affects the output of the pickup. We want to make sure that the output, or the gain rather, of each pickup is the same with everything open. Neck pickup, bridge. So the bridge can come up slightly. It's not quite as loud as the neck, so just get it a little bit closer to the strings. All right. This guitar is now road ready. That's the way I like to have them. And the motto here in the shop is so a little more contact cleaner in there really helped these. Yes, they're working okay now, just fine. So how does it look now? Remember those dirty frets and that dirty fingerboard? Well, it practically looks new here, and everything's cleaned up. The guitar plays great. This is obviously a semi-hollow 335 copy. I don't know what year this is, but it's a nice guitar, and it's got a good solid feel. There's some kind of a serial number up here if somebody wants to look that up. I'm not gonna, so help yourself. But the main thing is it's been brought back. I mean, this thing's ready to play again. It's gonna sound great, all cleaned up, detailed. And this is what we do at Folkstone Guitars. This is a full setup and full detail. Now, if I do a full setup on a guitar, it's different. It doesn't involve all this detailed cleaning and removing the tuners and all that. Normally, I don't have to do that, especially for a new guitar. But this is the full detail and full setup. Visit us at folkstoneguitars.com and also stainlesssteelfrets.com. Thank you.